What is going on, everybody? Hope you are having a wonderful week so far. Before we start the podcast, the usual stuff, I have a Discord community. I'd love it if you joined. The link is in the description. We talk about podcasts, we talk about music, I give away free music, I give away tickets. It's pretty much everywhere. The one-stop shop of where you get everything early before anyone else, really. And there's a bunch of people on there that talks cool shit and interesting stuff. So description, link, hit it if you want to join. Also on this podcast, if you listen to this regularly and you're not subscribed or you haven't reviewed by giving us a little star or a thumbs up or giving us a little comment, please do. It really does help the podcast. It really makes things easier for us to keep the podcast going. The more people that like it, the more likely people want to come on, and the more likely it can just keep going. So thank you for that. This week on the podcast is a very, very special one. Crowned the godfather of UK garage, Todd Edwards. Todd has been, I've looked up to Todd for a very long time. Obviously, being from the UK, I know the extent of what his creation of UK garage has done on the music industry in England, and how that has influenced so many genres and so much music over the years. On top of that, Todd won a Grammy with working with Daft Punk, which is just two insane things if you think about that. He is also an amazing DJ and still producing amazing music. And yeah, it was an absolute honor to get him on the podcast. I didn't think I'd ever be able to say a few episodes ago when I started this podcast that I'd be speaking to Todd Edwards. So yeah, thank you all for listening as well. But also thank you for Todd for coming on. So I'm going to stop mumbling on and listen to the podcast. It's a good one. There is a couple right at the beginning, about 9 minutes and 12 minutes. There's a couple of audio issues, but that's it for the rest of the podcast. So if it goes a bit quiet, bin it off, or don't bin it off, just keep going. It's literally like 10 seconds here or there. So, without further ado, Todd Edwards. Mr. Todd Edwards. What an absolute...
How are you, my brother?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm good.
Dude.
I got up earlier for you because, I don't get up early at all. This is early for me.
I was going to say, what time is it? Are you in LA right now?
Yeah, it's only 9 o'clock. I'm joking. I mean, I'll get up. I could get up early, but sometimes I'll sleep until 11. I'm a very efficient producer, for sure.
Well, first of all, before we go into any of this, man, it's an absolute honor to meet you.
Thank you.
Honestly, for what you've done in the industry, thank you so much, man. You are literally a huge inspiration to me, especially, but I know a lot of people that are listening to this will be hyped to hear this conversation. So thanks for coming on, man. It means a lot.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I always have to pay people to say that to me. So how much do I owe you for that?
A lot of money. How's life? What's cooking with you?
Life is good. What could I tell? Well, I did I just got back a couple weeks ago from 3 weeks in Europe.
Yeah.
And if you proceed to ask me where I played, my mind's going to draw a blank and be like, okay, I played Eden I was in Ibiza. I played a couple defected parties. I was in Croatia for a festival. I was in Tenerife, which I never even heard of before.
Did you know?
I'm learning about geography through my DJ career. So, no, it was a cool little tour.
Yeah.
I got a couple of weeks off, and then October is going to get busy again. So things have been going well touring wise, and it's just been Defected's been releasing a lot of remixes from my back catalog. So I'm excited about that. And I got a lot of unreleased material that I need to release, so I'm looking to do that as well.
Nice, man.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
How long you been doing it for?
I've been making music for about 30 years now. I think I started. I'm 50 now.
Yeah.
And I would say I started right out of high school, and I started to develop, somewhat of a name, I guess by 22-ish, around that.
Yeah.
I was fortunate because it wasn't a long process before I drew some attention.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because I wanted to quit every 5 minutes. So it's like, I'm not good enough.
Do you still feel like that though?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, I'm known for inadvertently being one of the inventors of UK garage,
Which
and
is
I have a
so crazy to me. Like,
yeah, what's crazy to me too,
because you're not from England, right?
Yeah, exactly. A
Crazy.
bedroom producer from New Jersey originally,
Yeah.
But I got that. I got a Grammy under my belt from working with Daft Punk, and it's like, and I'm still an insecure producer DJ. Like it doesn't go away. But I would say that I think because I've had success. I turned 50 and I didn't have any midlife crisis, so that was a good thing because, like, at least if I didn't accomplish something, I'd probably be a lot more insecure than I am now. But I guess I feel good about myself because I have done something that was noteworthy in life,
Well, I think if you think about it, our lives is just one long midlife crisis.
Yeah, I had so many before 50 that I think I just tired myself
out. Exactly.
Like
what a midlife crisis is giving up your day job and working out that you want to be a DJ and trying to work out that our whole lives are like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy that because the amount of people that I speak to and the amount of friends that we all have probably in common and conversations I have daily with people, with friends, it's that like never feeling like you've done enough in this industry. And you achieve one thing and then it's not about, it's like, do you actually enjoy the moment of achieving that thing, or is it straight away onto the next?
That's a good question. For me, I think the achievement feeling is finishing a project that you feel great about more so than the achievement. I think the achievement also is having a crowd or a group of people like what you do. Yeah. I think as a genuine artist, and like, there are people that I think that make music that are just, that are just doing it because they want to just achieve a certain level of fame or whatever they can. I'm not knocking anyone for doing what they do. For me as an artist, you need to have an audience to react to work. Like painters need to have at least one or two people to like look at it and say, hey, I really like that. And then I think the same thing with music. It's just like, not that it's been agonizing, but like I did this music during the pandemic and I still haven't released it yet. And things have moved a little slow. Like I've done remixes during the last couple of years, but I'm so eager to get this music out. And it's not because I'm looking to be like, oh, I want it to have some stellar success, but you just want your fans and people that appreciate what you do to hear what you did. Totally. It's almost like, it's like the kid making a drawing for his parents to put it on the refrigerator. Like, here, listen, look at this, I mean, that's how I feel about it,
No, I really like that. Do you think that's changed over the years of your career?
No, I mean, I think the desire as an artist is always to create and share. I mean, even, I've gotten better as a DJ, and it's taken a while for me to get to where I feel really confident and comfortable with who I am as a DJ. And I still feel like there's always room for improvement because it wasn't my first passion. Yeah. But I do enjoy it. But the thing of it is even that is to fund the operation so I can continue to be in the studio and to make music, because that is where my heart is to just want to be exploring and experimenting and coming up with new ideas,
That's interesting because I think it's really hard to enjoy the journey of success when you're kind of so in it and so want that success. Yeah. But I guess if the way you're looking at it is that like the fact that anybody's listening is a success.
Yeah, no, well, that I do believe that, and I think that's one of the benefits I think of this modern age. Like there's a trade-off with technology. You have people that wanted music for free, so now everyone has their stuff on streaming and makes little money compared to the way it was. But at the same time, you can put your music up on SoundCloud and develop an underground following. I mean, like the idea that, anyone could stream you put their own music up now is a blessing. I mean, like, even like, I remember when Bandcamp first came out, I'm like, I looked at Bandcamp, like, Band. Like I didn't even like the name of Bandcamp. Yeah. And like here it's become this great source to, if you want to get like underground garage music.
Yeah.
A lot of people put their stuff up on. I mean, and big producers. So it's not even just like the new producers, but like Sam Vergy, Salute, like all these people are utilizing Bandcamp amongst the other things like Beatport and TrackSource and stuff like that. I think that's an amazing thing. I mean, I guess the negative side is that everyone floods the market, and there are some producers that maybe need to work on the production before releasing stuff, and then you have to weed through all that stuff to get to the good stuff. But
you had to do that in record shops back in the day anyway.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
There was always that.
Something?
Yeah, go for it.
No. I couldn't stand going to record shops.
Really?
I felt so ignorant because the thing of it, well, first of all, I was more of a producer than a DJ back then, and then when I did go, I felt so ignorant, and I wouldn't want to ask.
Yep.
For help, and I was like, I could be there for hours and pick up like 3 records and stuff, and I was so clueless and awkward and self-conscious and stuff. So that was the one thing that once it became an online thing, I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I can be ignorant and feel, and I can feel like a fool, but in my own house and not worry about.
Well, also record shops, notoriously awful places to be in because everyone's judging you.
Well, I didn't know if that was just inside my head because I'm always judging me, or if it was that, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. And it's like, you really, as a young DJ back then, it's like, I had a friend that kind of shared when I first got into house music. He's the one that introduced me to house music. And he's like, pay attention to the labels, pay attention to the names, like the producers that are underneath the main names. And like, gave me an education as to like, okay, well, like check out what this label's like, what's on this label. This is like what you'll hear on this label, and like this label will play something different. And it's like, and again, it's just like I took a break from when I was 17, I was DJing, but then I stopped.
Todd, can I stop you there? I lost you for some reason there.
I just saw it said unstable.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
To me, it was referring to the internet connection.
We got up to your friend telling you about the producers and the record labels.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. So, I had a friend, my friend Rich Creso, who taught me about house music and what to look at the names on, like, because there's always like the name of the artist, but then underneath was his actual production name. And then like check out the label, listen to what they're playing on this label, because that's going to be common for when you pick up a record on that label. But at 17, what I did is I was starting to get into DJing, and I was doing pretty good. And then I decided to stop and just focus on production.
Interesting.
So once I got back into DJing, I wasn't even aware of like who's putting out what, aside from maybe like Strictly Rhythm and Nervous. Like I wasn't really paying attention to labels. So the idea of going into a record shop cold turkey and figuring things out and what section to look at, and then like and then you had to play the records and stuff, and it was just like it was kind of it made me anxious.
Yeah, I get it, man. I think that was the whole point of record shops, to like, because it was I genuinely think it was, because it was like, what, you're trying to be a DJ and no one's allowed to be a DJ. Like, you have to be a certain type of person to be a DJ, and like it's not a welcoming kind of industry, which is, in the grand scheme of things, is not. Especially back then, it was very like elitist, but it wasn't elitist. It was just a bunch of geeky fucking dudes working out how to twist knobs and make sounds. Yeah. Like, I remember there was a local record shop to me, that I used to buy my records from all the time. And when I was like 12 when I first went in there, and like I remember like just the way they look at you the first time going in. They're like, oh, who's this kid coming in? And like there's a record shop in Bristol. I won't name it, but it's exactly. I went in there literally 6 months ago, and there was like 3 of us that, like, not tooting our own horns, but we all have done stuff in the industry. Yeah. Like, and the owner knows who we are. Go in, completely ignores us.
How very English.
Exactly. And I'm like, this is so amazing. I love it. I respect it. I'm like, yes, you are keeping the
tradition of the snobby DJ selector.
Yep.
That's amazing. And again, it's just like, I grew up in New Jersey, so I would go to New York and stuff. And, again, I don't know if I was feeling the vibe in the club or if it was in my head, but I always felt like there was like a certain amount of like ego and arrogance that I felt when I walked in the club. And I still don't know if it was all in my head or if it was actually that there was that bit of that snobbery.
Oh, 100%. 100%. But I also think it's like, I think you still get it now. And we just we call it clicks, right? They're cliques.
The good thing for me is I never fit in with any of that.
Yeah.
And I haven't changed because like I said, I've managed to whittle out my own little personality. Like my personality is that I don't have an artist persona. Like I get to be me.
Lost you again, man.
The goofball that I am. Did it freeze again?
It froze again, but you're back. You're
okay.
good.
Sorry. It could be my internet server.
It's all good, don't worry.
Also, I keep getting, I went on, but by the way, I went on this 80s. I was in the mood for nostalgia and I went on this 80s video game online site. And now I keep getting this message that's saying your computer might be infected. So I'm going to have to do like a sweep. So that might be I thought it was a fake message, but that could be causing.
Are you sure? Anyway. Are you sure it was 80s TV shows?
Yeah, it was. Trust me. It's more interesting. It's more interesting than those other websites sometimes. So, anyway, wait, what was I saying? So so I get to I'm happy that I don't have to like developing my artist personality is just me. You know what I mean? Like there's no facade, there's no, and it might, and I know what you're saying, like there are still people that are cliquey and stuff, and it's kind of funny because I don't see how that works so well. I guess some fans like putting a-holes on pedestals, but like to me it's just like I want to be approachable by people, and
I agree.
I don't try to like, when someone, I do have people like that have spoken to me, be like, sometimes they say don't meet your heroes, and it's so nice to meet you. And it's like I don't think of myself in the terms of what they're looking at me because I'm just So
there's that saying we all shit out the same hole.
Yeah, we do.
And I think that's the thing.
Some more than others.
100%. But I understand clicks in the industry, and I understand why they're successful because I think it's very packaged well, and you know what you're going to get. And I think that's at the end of the day, it's like it's the Apple kind of concept, right? You know what you're going to get with an Apple, like Apple iPhone, like you know exactly what you're going to get when you buy that Mac. You know exactly what you're going to get, and I think it's the same with a lot of clicks in the industry. But sometimes it's just a bit wanky at the end of the day.
Well, it's like I like the concept of family. Like the first label I was on, again, I had two managers that did the opposite. Like it was like, had a group of us and kept us not separated per se, but just didn't have that cohesive vibe to it. Where to me, it's like there is power in packs. You know what I mean? Like 100%. So not even just saying click, but like, like now I'm with my current manager he represents the rapper Example.
Wow.
He represents DJ Majestic.
Who's your manager?
Mickey McNeese.
Okay, yeah.
Slim. I don't know if you know him. So I know he was a prominent DJ producer in the early 2000s, and then switched over to management. Great guy. But he represents Jay Robinson in an array of different like writers and singers, and it's just great that I do feel like there is this this family element to it, like we're not keeping us separate, but bringing us together, and it's nice I love that. And even just being part of Defected now, and to have someone like Wes Saunders is a fan of my work and just a great guy, and just bringing me in, like I don't need to be the prime center of attention, but it's just nice to be part of something bigger than myself.
I totally agree. When I first became, I guess, full-time in music, successful in music, it was through the record label Dirty Bird. Yeah. And that was like, it was exactly the same. That was quintessential family in music industry.
Yeah, of course, for sure.
It was like at that time, especially for me, it was like 2014 to 2018, I guess, for me. And it was kind of the heyday for Dirty Bird as well, in a sense of like that was when it just got massive. And
Yeah.
it was so nice to see like everyone succeed around you and everyone help each other out. And I feel like that's kind of lost a little bit in certain areas in the industry, because I think it's so much easier to just go alone. It's so much easier about just like, you can, like you said, you can release music. Anyone can release music.
Yeah.
There's no like, there's no barriers of entry. So I think it comes out. However, the one thing that I find with Clicks, and I found it with Dirty Bird, and there's other record labels out there, that you eventually, there's eventually a formula that everyone sees do well. Mm-hmm. And that formula just gets done over and over and over again, and the creativity gets lost, which is the whole point of the record label in the first place, that did so well, was because the music was so forward thinking, and then the forward thinking music becomes no longer forward thinking.
It becomes what's the word? Just like, everyone starts kind of emulating that, and then you have to move. But you know what? I think that formula is a tricky thing. I think there is a certain formula in any music making. Like it doesn't have to be, so predictable, but it is a trap that it's very easy to fall into the longer you've been in it, because totally. I know that, I have to kind of challenge myself to get out of my comfort zone. I've gotten much better with it now, because I feel like, so I moved to LA 10 years ago. So I feel like this is the best version of myself I've ever been. And like, to me, I can sit here and like, if you want, Todd Edwards remix, and I know how to do a formulaic standard vintage Todd remix, but like, my desire is to sit at the keyboard and say, what new thing can I infuse into my work?
Totally.
I think the formula thing can come from a fear of failure, or a fear of like, you don't want to screw anything up. So it's like, it's very easy to fall into that box of doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
I think, and again, you know what, I'm wondering if age has a lot to do with your evolution in what you decide to do, because like, at 50, I'm so much more laid back than I was 20s, 30s. Like now again, it's like I'm focused on, I got to pay the bills with what I do, but like, I don't care about a lot of, like, I don't feel that self-consciousness that I did when I was younger. And it's very freeing, and it also makes you feel like experimenting more and just like, try, like, I'm not afraid to fail with my work, you know what I mean? Like, because I have a notch under my belt, I've proven myself. Then again, there's a walking contradiction to that, because you were asking about how do you still feel the same way? I'm a little late to the party all the time with the ideas. Like, if you notice, like over the last few years, like collaborations have taken the forefront. Like, everyone collaborates, and it's like, it makes a lot of sense, especially in a saturated industry, to build hype, to have different people working with different people. And my manager was always encouraging me to do that. And I've always been so, like, even though I've had successful collaborations, I love working alone. And I think part of that was because I always feel like I need to prove something, you know what I mean? Like, so it's always like, when I feel like I'm like, I've finally learned to like sit back and be like, I don't have to do everything in the production to feel good about what's being done. Like, even if I did 10% of something, it's okay. I've earned the right to sit back and be like, I did 10% of that, and not feel like, well, I didn't do enough and I shouldn't be so successful. Like, this is like the messed up mentality that I would think of. Like, I need to have 50% of the production in there, or, I can't take credit for it, or like, I don't feel good enough to take credit for it. Isn't that insane? But it's the truth.
No, I get that concept, because it makes complete sense, especially with how long you've been doing it for. And I think I'd like to disagree to say that you're behind on those things, because I think you're, from an outsider's point of view, you're almost an inventor of things. But I understand what you say. I think I'm kind of similar in that sense, where for a long time I wouldn't really write music with people. It was always just me in my studio working out what to do. But recently, the last year, the only time I've actually really enjoyed making music is with other people. I've like
There is no, sorry.
I've
Go,
like I've kind of like I'm not loving writing house music anymore by myself. It's like kind of just gone for me.
The one thing, well, I think the problem with me is I'm like an inefficient producer. Like I don't go into the studio and just like pound out like 3 tracks in a day. I'm just not that person. And the older I get, the more I have to struggle with my efficiency. So it's like, I guess I get disheartened to say if I do a collaboration with someone and it never comes out or something, I'm like, well, it's like, and it always feels like, oh, we put all this time into it. It could just be a day. Like, you know what I mean? It might not, but I just, everything that I work on, I want to see something come out of it. But even when it doesn't, though, I have to say with collaborations, one of the best things about collaborations is always learning techniques or viewpoints of other producers. I've learned so much sitting in sessions with other producers, and it could be a plugin, it could be, like I said, it could be a technique and stuff. And I really appreciate that. You were saying about the writing house music, like, is there something that contributes beyond the fact that, you like working with other people, but what do you feel contributed to the idea of not wanting to write house music by yourself? Like what lost its...
I think because I'm kind of the opposite to you, where I churn out records left, right, and center. And for me, it comes to a point where it's like, I'm just writing a record to write a record. I'm not necessarily writing a record because I have this amazing idea in my head that I have to come up with.
I got you. Yeah.
And I think it's also that is like working with other people, whether it's a vocalist, whether it's a keys player, whatever it is, whoever that person is, it's like bringing something to the party that I can't do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I think for me that's just like way more fun. Really? No,
I agree with you. I was going to say something that you made me think of. I find that, there are times too, it's like, especially when you're younger, like you feel like you get inspired by things. And it's like, I think the more it becomes like a job, there are those times where there's no inspiration, but that doesn't mean you can't sit down and make a great track because of the fact that you're knowledgeable in how to do it. I think it just feels better when you feel that inspiration, but that's the difference between, if it's a job or a hobby, like, you know what I mean? Like, hobbyists can just be like, I'm in the mood to make a track today. Like when it's your job and you got to pay the bills, it's like, you got to keep turning stuff out regardless,
Yeah, and I also think that for me, I'm not too sure if you've ever gone through this where like it's to find that inspiration gets harder and harder. For me, it does anyway. And it's kind of like when I find that inspiration, I'm loving it. I'm in. Like if I find a sample that I'm like, yeah, I can do something with this, or there's just something that I'm like, that's when I love it the most. But also, it just takes me longer to get that inspiration now.
Yeah. I completely understand that. My thing is when I was younger, the less you understood, like, I think that's the thing too. It's like, I kind of understood more and more music theory. So when I'd listen to music, like I'd listen to masters at work, and like early stuff, and I'd be like, oh, how did they do that? How do they do that? Like that magic of like, oh my God, this is so inspiring. How did they do that? And was the driving factor of like, I want to make something this great, And as you start to learn how people make music, or you learn music theory or how to work, your equipment, your drum machine, or you may get better at doing what you're doing, you start listening to music more and you understand how they do it. And it's like, so that you're not blown away anymore because of the fact that you're a competent, knowledgeable producer, and then on top of that, I think music has gotten in all, not even just dance music, I think across the board, music has gotten so simplified. I don't hear any like I mean, again, I don't go searching a lot, but like, when you go through your promos, like there's nothing that jumps out and be like, my gosh, how do they do that? Like what, this is something new. I've never heard anything like that. A lot of it, I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to explore because they're just trying to be successful, and playing it safe across the board is just the call of the day, from major label to indie label. And, I think you have to put an element of risk to really, to have the payoff, you know what I mean? Like try something. And I think that's lacking right now.
I totally agree with you. And I also think it's just the way the industry is at this moment in time on what, I think it's just the fact that it's just got so commercialized again. And we're kind of going through that. Can you remember like the EDM days?
Yes.
And it's like,
for sure.
We're going through that stage right now where it's people realize that they can make a shit ton of money from this. And there's almost like no foundation building. There's no actual, I'm massively generalizing and I will offend a lot of people.
No, listen, you're not saying anything that I don't agree with, but you know what I mean?
It's like you're 100% right. There's only I can only list a couple of artists that I will run and go listen to their music because I know every release will be interesting and I will question how the fuck do they do that. And I still Macioplex for me is one of in dance music, Macioplex, Chemical Brothers. Those two are just like some artists that I'm just like, how the hell do you do that? And I still haven't worked that out, if you know what I mean. And I love that. But you've got to dig, really got to dig to get through that.
I agree. My brain is racing. So I'm listening to you and then there's thoughts that keep going in and out of my head that I was going to say. That was the thing. The other thing, I wanted to ask your opinion, and I want to get back to what you were saying about digging. And again, I never really paid attention to I was always in my own little world. But it just seems these days that you can have one hit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're playing every festival circuit off of that one hit. And it's just I feel like back in the day you had to earn your place to be able to play bigger events. And there was a building block to becoming a reputable DJ. Yeah. And now it just seems like one hit and then boom, you're playing main stage. Am I correct in that assumption? Do you feel that way too? Or is it,
I think there's levels of it. And I think there's, yes, but
and more power to you. I'm not knocking, just I'm not knocking the idea that it's doing it, but it's just I feel like you have these people that have worked their entire lives, to get to where they are. My thing is a perfect example is Honey Dijon. Yeah. She's killing it. But I'm saying she's been in it since I remember her from the 90s. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's this been incline. She's an amazing DJ, get into production, and then boom, she's a representative for the community and, musically and DJing wise. But you can have someone that just comes in and, be playing the same event that had one track or I don't know. Go on.
I totally agree. And I think the reason behind that is social media, because let's be honest, promoters don't want, this is probably going to piss promoters off if they're listening as well, but a lot of promoters aren't actual promoters now. Yeah. To the promoters for the community of what we knew. It's I remember going to clubs and the promoter would be selling the tickets and the promoter will be hustling to sell those tickets, where now it's way more, because there's way more money in it. Promoters, will go, let's look at this artist, who's popping off right now, who's got the most amount of social media following, and who, yes, I might have to spend an extra $5,000. Let's say my budget's 10 grand. Okay. Well, I know for 10 grand, that person's going to sell my club out straight away. It's not I've got a weekly following of punters that come to my club every week, and I know that they're going to have a great time if I put this cool DJ on that's been doing it for a long time. It's not that. It's who's going to sell my show out for the least amount of money. And
I agree.
The new kids on the block that are having these hit records that don't have foundations they don't have a foundation of fans or followers. It's very easy because they can get them a bit cheaper because it's their first or second tour.
Okay, so there is a level of the level of paying versus the level of getting people in the club and finding that balance for money making.
Because you know your worth.
Yeah, I do.
You know your worth.
Yes,
exactly.
I do.
There's going to be a certain amount of money that you won't get out of bed for, I can imagine, right?
Yeah.
There comes a point in your career where there's like, actually, no, I don't want to do that for that much money.
Yeah, it's gotta have enough to warrant the flight for 5 hours or 3 hours or whatever the case may be. I agree.
And I think when you're younger, not that agents and managers will do this, but like you have opportunities, so you take them. And I don't think that's necessarily always the case. I think just generally social media is so powerful nowadays that it sells so many tickets that promoters need it.
But you know what? It's a good reminder though, because it's like, my manager was always like since I moved to LA 10 years ago. Yeah. When I moved to LA, I tried to come at him because, like I said, for years, I just be my own little bubble. There'd be very little influence coming in, like via dance music. I honestly just did what I did. Like I'd listen to what I'd listen to. I'd sample from what I'd sample to, but I wasn't really, and I had a corner on my own market. So it was easier to do that. So when I moved here, I started to try to be open to other forms of dance music, other producers, and which is a good thing, but it can also mess with your head too, because then you can get sucked into chasing, what other people are doing. And it's like, that's never been my thing. And it's almost like I can't, jump out of who I am just to follow someone else. But at the same time, it's good to keep your ear to the floor and know what else is going on, learn from the sound that's there and how you can infuse your own style into what's going on per se. I kind of forgot where I was going with this statement. Wait, what was the last thing
we were talking
said?
about social media, we were talking about ticket sales, we were talking about hits, people getting hits and then being put on the main stage and things like that.
No, there was a good point, Will, that I was going to make, but what I can say is like it'll come back to me. But the one thing I have, the social media thing, that was it. So it's like, I never paid attention to socials really. Like, even though I was on like instant stuff, it's like, I just found it to be ridiculous because it's like, I thought like, oh, this is a great platform to promote my music. And it's like, you put a clip of your music and we get like 500 likes, but then I would have a picture of me eating a donut and it'd be like, oh, 2,000. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I'm like, aren't people following you for your music? And it's like this revelation that this is the new world. This is the way it is. And the perfect example is like, you can see all these young DJs or producers and see them playing here and playing there. And I never thought about the idea of like, well, they're taking less pay because they're younger, or they might not be, you're not paying attention to what they're getting paid. You're only paying attention to what you see in front of you. And it just is another example of how social media just paints this picture of this, this golden situation, which might not be the case. It's just, it looks great on paper, but like, behind the scenes, you might not be making bank. You could just be, just getting by.
And I think also is like, especially nowadays, where we're at with the kind of equality side of things in the industry, is like a lot of people don't even get booked for their music. A lot of people, which is sad to me, but a lot of like playlisting isn't based on the music, it's based on what you look like and who you are, which there's levels that I agree with and there's levels I don't agree with. But like, that is this industry right now. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of young cats that are making bank because they are that successful. But I think there's a lot of tick boxing going on at this moment in time.
Look, the point being is, I'm all for, I am very glad that women in the industry are getting more attention.
Same.
I'm glad that there's attention to the LGBTQ community. I'm part of that now. But the thing is I think that it's not any fault of that case, but the idea is, again, when promoters are just looking to make money, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're just coming in with that angle.
Yep.
So I think what happens is, and what will happen, well, one of two things. It's like, the thing of it is like the expectations of the audience, might be less than it used to be. Like, in other words, like, people might accept mediocrity as good music. And that scares me, because like a lot of music has gotten very mediocre.
Yeah.
But I also believe that, newer generations might be like, you know what, I'm not going to just go to this gig because they're checking the box. Like, in other words, I think there comes an equilibrium. Like, so it's like, you know what, now they're just go, hey, let's get this person on, because we got to like get X amount of X amount of men, X amount of women, X amount of gay, whatever. I think what will happen is that it will level out 100%. Where you have, it's like, oh, you know what, we're gonna get him because he's a great producer, DJ. We love his music, and she's amazing, and this one's amazing. Like, where it gets back to the quality and not just the hype of like, the stereotypical checking boxes. You know what I mean? And I'm glad. Like, I think there always needs to be that initial like overdo it type of mentality, because you see that in film as well. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like all of a sudden, like, it's flooded with like, okay, hey, it's cool to do this, so let's put all that in there. And it's like, but okay, if you can do it, but make the roles important. Don't just do it just because everyone's doing it. Mm-hmm. Give them a character, give them a good background, give them an arc. You know what I mean? So
I think that's it. It's really, I 100% agree with you. And I think I speak to some friends that are in that situation where they are the ones that are getting, they're the tick boxers. They're being the ones
the box tickers.
No, they're not the box tickers. They're the artists that are the box tickers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like, I had a really interesting conversation with someone. I won't mention who it is because it's up to them. But like, even they were like, they're seeing it. It's just like everything is exactly the same, and they play these shows, and they're like, I'm not being booked to play the music that I'm known for. I'm purely being booked because I fill a spot on this lineup. And I think that's the thing. And also, it's lazy A&Ring, it's lazy promoting, it's lazy agenting, it's lazy managing. It's like, who ticks the box that needs to be done, and then we can just go and use that person. It's not like, because there's so many people that make amazing music that just aren't being put out, if you know what I mean. There's so much amazing music out there. Like, and there always has been. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the point being is, I think, and like, let's just even narrow it down to not even say like different groups, but just like the idea of the attractiveness of a person.
Oh, 100%.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're good looking, young, look like a party, like, your eye candy, male or female, it's going to help, because it is a commercial thing now. It has become an event more than just promoting the music or and then, like, I've had, I've seen things on social media. It's like, it used to be, you go to a club, the DJ was in the corner and in the dark, and you're going to hear what they're doing. It wasn't, but they weren't the center of attention. They were bringing the center of attention to the dance floor. You know what I mean? And then, usually you would go to hear, oh, I want to go hear that DJ because I love their style of playing, and that's probably gotten lost a bit with the way things are now. But, like, let's hope that, for everything, that when it simmers up to the top, things go back underground. I don't know if it's gonna, human beings need change all the time. It's inevitable. So the idea that this is the way it is right now it's not going to stay this way. Something will have to change, whether it's a music style, whether it's people get tired of going just to hear. Like, I don't believe it's just going to be consistently this way forever.
I agree, and it won't be. It never is. There's fashion. It's just like fashion clothes. It's like things go in and out of fashion. Sometimes it's amazing fashion and sometimes it's fucking awful, but it all leaves. I want to talk about the godfather of UK garage. Yeah, that's you. How did all of that start?
I mean, for me, again, I was this producer that didn't have a lot of equipment. I had an Sonic EPS sampler, had like 15 seconds of sample time on there. I had a Juno 106. I didn't have a computer at the time, no effects units, nothing. You know what I mean? Like I was actually mixing stuff down on a DJ mixer that my friend gave me to use, and I had PA speakers, like nothing professional. And the thing is my friend Rich, who introduced me because again, I would, when I was a teenager, I'd go to like teen club night they had in New Jersey. So I'd know dance music, but I didn't really know the ins and outs. But he introduced me to the likes of Todd Terry. And what I always noticed about Todd Terry is that you could drop a Todd Terry record and it's a Todd Terry record because the beats, you could hear it in the beats, you could hear it in the sample style. Same thing with Masters at Work. You could tell when it was a Kenny Dope drum programming and Louis playing and stuff. So it was like people like that. I'm like, I want to develop my own signature. Because you want people to know it's your music. So it's like, at first it's all experimentation. Then once I heard MK's Nightcrawlers and like what he did with the cut-ups, I'm like, that's the first stage of any producer is imitation. So I was like, you listen to my earlier work and it was me trying to imitate a Masters at Work track or taking the MK cut-ups and stuff. And I think as I developed, and also like I always say that I threw a little Enya in there. Like I loved Enya, the way she used her vocals for instruments. So it's like, because I lacked musical equipment, I'm like, what if I did the cut up thing and started using bigger chunks, like not just vocals, but just musical elements as well. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, because I didn't have like, if you loaded a piano onto this sampler, there was no room to do anything else. That piano sample was taking up the whole thing. So it's like I started taking snippets of different records and then I was trying to sound like Kenny Dope's drum programming and the quantize on the Ensoniq, the swing of the 16 triplet was so definitive of that sampler that it gave my music this sloppy, shuffly sound. So it's like you had this combination of ideas, which was just to develop my own signature. Yeah. Never did I think it was going to take off. But like, I started releasing, I had a couple of projects on Nervous, The Messenger, and the Sample Choir. But the thing of it is I don't think that took off as quickly. Like that almost came afterwards. But like I started releasing stuff on iRecords, which was a new label out in Newark, New Jersey, which was one town over from where I lived. And, it was... the first Avenue EP, which I had a track on, and there was this wonderful DJ named DJ Camacho, who big teddy bear, unfortunately passed away, diabetic. But he played in the downstairs of the Sound Factory bar on a Wednesday night. Little Louie was upstairs, he was downstairs. And I loved it because he would just play all this underground music off of cassettes. He's the only person I knew that had a pitch a pitch changing cassette deck. Like, wow. You know what I mean? Like, you had that on your Technique 1200s, but on a cassette deck, I thought that was amazing, So then you could really just hand demos to him easily and have him play right there, But he was like, I remember him coming back from Italy. He's like, oh, you're big in Italy, like Italy. Like, and I had my friends like joking around me like, L'Italia, you're big in Italy. And then all of a sudden there was some traction in England, and then I had like, what
year are we talking?
It had to be, I would say around 93, 94, okay. I would say. Yeah. It's getting blurrier as the years go on, but I think it was pre 95, like, you know what I mean? So, then my manager at the time who owned iRecords was in touch with Tough Jam, Carl Brown and Matt Lamont. And they were interested in promoting my work.
Is that Matt Jam Lamont?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I've not heard that name in so many years.
He's still doing his thing too.
Yeah. I used to play with him in Ibiza.
Did you really?
Yeah. Lovely guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I have to reach out to, it's been a while. Where we have a track that we did a while ago that we still have to release that's never gotten released. So I can do that. Anyway, I digress.
Sorry.
But anyway, it just started to pick up, and then I remember going to Nervous. I started to get work. One of the things was Saint Germain. I was listening to DJ Disciple had a radio show like on college radio, and he called it the New York's Best Kept Secret, and I would listen to it and record music from there all the time. And he was a big supporter of my work, which got Mike Weiss involved. Like, in other words, Mike Weiss would always be interested in what Disciple was playing. So that's how I got the two projects on Nervous. And it turned out that those Nervous EPs started to develop a hype that inspired from what Mike Weiss said was this Sunday scene where, that people would, go out to clubs, and he was like, you could go out there and clean up. And here I am in my 20s, mentally a mess, literally needed medication, becoming successful and so not ready to be able to deal with that in a functional way. Because I'm I was a mess in my 20s. So, and I had stage fright too. So I had given up DJing. I could have DJ'd, and like I said, made a ton of money. I remember I was asked to DJ by who I didn't realize at the time there was a gig out in Paris with Saint Germain, Daft Punk before they were really Daft Punk and all. And I couldn't do it. I just, I found out years later it was them, but I couldn't do it. So
I want to go into that if you're happy to go into that a little bit.
Go into wherever you want.
I want to go into that. Why were you a mess in your 20s?
Well, I can honestly say it now, because I never really made any official statement about it. I struggled with my sexuality from my 20s. That was the cornerstone of what started it off. I basically I didn't want to deal with that fact. I mean, it's different than it is today. Obviously, 100%. It's everything's so accepted, but in the 80s and the 90s, growing up in an Italian neighborhood in a very conservative family, I didn't want to deal with this. You know what I mean? So I became a workaholic not to deal with that. I was like, I'll deal with it once I become rich and I'm, happy. And what happened was I became such a workaholic in my early, because I had a producer, who goes under the name Andy Tripoli. Mm-hmm. And he, I don't know if you know what Latin freestyle is. It was a big kind of sound in New York. No, I don't. Google it or go on YouTube, get an education. It was so big in New York at the time. Still kind of has a Miami vibe to it as well. But this producer told me to eat, sleep, and shit music, and that's exactly what I tried to do. But it was like I burnt myself out. Yeah. And every time and what happened is once I burnt myself out, then I had to face this other part of myself that I didn't want to deal with. And, this developed a depression, this cycle of depression that would happen every couple of years, really bad depression. So it's I'd work, be okay, get burnt out. Then this happened. And literally 6 years of dealing with that type of vibe. And, on top of that, I had a stage fright that developed from a seed that was planted when I was 8th grade doing a church play, which was thanks, Dad, for forcing me to do that shit in some small, evangelical church. Yeah. So it's again, depression destroys you. If it's untreated, it stunts your emotional growth, and again, it's just it didn't rear its head until I was in my 20s. So it's it wasn't even just the sexual conflict. There was our whole family deals with, my father's bipolar, my sister has stuff, my nephew, clearly there's a chemical part of the brain that deals with it as well. I wish I was who I am now back then, because then I would have had a clear focus on things. But unfortunately, the world just like, and I got tired of just feeling like I had to fight for my happiness all the time. So fortunately,
how did you get through that?
Well, part of it was therapy.
Yeah.
Part of it was antidepressants, which I still to this day, like, to me, and that was the thing too, there was such a stigma back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I think I'm still sure there's probably in England or, there still is stigma attached to the idea of therapy. And I think it's 100%. Much more open now.
Yeah, 100%. Especially in England. But, English people.
What's that?
English people don't like talking about their feelings.
Yeah, well, of course, that's what I'm saying. It's a very, I know how they are. Believe me, I've been in England enough. I know how it is for English people. But, I think though it became more acceptable in now, like, and now there's so many diagnosed ADD, this, that, and it's like, so, but at the time, like, it's embarrassing to feel like, oh, you got to go to therapy or to even take something to help take the edge off.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid that like taking like an antidepressant was going to stifle my creativity.
Yeah.
It didn't. Obviously, I went on to become more successful after that. But, it was like, it felt almost like you feel like you're failing to have to give in to taking something. You know what I mean? I don't look at it that way now, but at the time it's you're awkward, you're embarrassed, you feel all these feelings. And, and again, it's a good thing I did do all that because, I just got tired of fighting for my happiness. Like literally and I always said it was like your emotional side and your logical side just don't add up. Like logically, you have no reason to feel this way, but for some reason your brain just cannot prevent it from happening. Yeah. And I feel like the meds help to sync them up together. Where it's like, okay, so now it's like I still get down sometimes, but I don't have trouble. I don't cover myself with blankets and stay in bed all day. You know what I mean? Like it's just normal adulting. Yeah.
No, I get that. And I think it's also, especially in this industry as well, it's even harder to kind of work through that when you become successful, because all eyes are on you and everyone wants to talk to you. Everyone wants something to do with you. Everyone wants a piece of you. And then you're dealing with your inner battles, and it's hard. It's hard.
Well, I was very alone back then. I have to say, I'm not looking for pity, but like, I couldn't talk. I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about this. I mean, nowadays it's like, it's on every TV channel and everything, but like sexuality was not a thing that you feel comfortable bringing up to your friends or something like that. So it was very lonely. You know what I mean? Aside from,
how long did it take you to kind of get through that and kind of work that out, that it's okay to just talk about it?
Well, it took a long ass time because I basically gave in and started exploring that environment back in the late 90s. And I kind of got shell shock because there was extremes, in the scene,
especially
in New York.
Like,
yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, I came from a very conservative background. I was expecting it to be just like, it's just, it's the same as being straight, except, the
same sex.
The opposite sex. And it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? So there was a lot to it. Like, again, and I'm not knocking it, but there was a lot of, let's just say like debaucheristic things that went on. And it was like, compounded with the idea that there was a disease that could kill you at the time. Yeah, so it's 100%. Like my young, naive brain could not handle that. So I kind of winded up feeling this sense of release in a freedom where I started to explore it. And then like 8 months later, I felt back to where I was because I couldn't handle it. And then I winded up diving into religion and like shutting it off.
Wow.
When I say shut it off, I just didn't deal with it for like 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Which, again, it's like, I don't regret the journey. I wish I handled it differently, but it is what it is. Yeah. But at the same time, I dove into my music. So it's like, it's almost like that became the main focus of my life, which it always has been. Yeah. But what happened is I basically, when I moved out of New Jersey, moved to LA, I saw a different side of things. Like, it was like, it's almost like sexuality was a matter of fact out here. It wasn't like this, there wasn't this big flag to wave over you. It's like, no one cared.
Yeah.
It's like you would introduce, like, this is so-and-so and their husbands, or whatever. It's like, it wasn't like, this is so-and-so and their husband. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was no extra emphasis on the fact that they, you know what I mean? Like, and I felt, and I wasn't happy. Like, even with religion and everything that I was in, I didn't have happiness for myself. I think the religion made me put everyone first, and I was putting myself second. So I just started to explore, like, what can make me happy, So, and I just explored that. And then and again, I don't believe in coincidence, and most people will probably not, like, I don't know what I feel about religious wise God anymore, but I do definitely feel like there's always been this governing force over my path.
Yeah.
I've taken a real left turn with this conversation.
No, I love this, because this is what I love this way more than talking about music.
Well, I think it's part of it.
Exactly.
I think everything is part of it. But I met someone by chance on an app. We won't go into the apps, but I was just exploring. And it was a wonderful, wonderful person. This great guy, and we started dating. And then I said this recently on the Ram, the recap documentary thing. I turned into this cheesy, like, high schooler, like, invited him to the Daft Punk Grammy party just to, like, show off because I wanted to impress him. Like, how cheesy is it? That was so like. But from that point on, we started dating, and we've been together for 9.5 years now.
Amazing.
And a very happy relationship. And I'm helping him with his music now too. And it's been let's put it this way: since I moved to LA, I put religion on the back burner. I became more confident, less insecure. Like, I'm living my best version of myself since I moved here. And, like, the only element that still continues is just the hustle of the industry. Like, in other words, I'm not a millionaire.
Yeah.
I'd like to get there at some point if it's possible. But the point being is, it's just the ups and the downs of this industry are the only battles basically now, because on a personal level, I feel at peace,
Which is a beautiful thing to be able to say that. I genuinely think there's actually not many people in this industry that can say that. And by hearing, I knew nothing about that with you, and, like,
no one does.
Yeah, and I thank you for sharing that, because it's really important. I think it's really important for these people that are listening, that want to be in the industry, or people that are in the industry that are full time, like you and I, that are going through stuff as well. And everyone goes through stuff. No matter what happens, everyone goes through stuff. And I think it's really, you don't have to talk about it publicly. You don't have to tell anybody, but you do have to come to a point where you have to speak, or you have to make changes. And it's that whole thing is a process. Yeah,
for sure. And for me, I am an open book. I take after my dad for sure with that. He talks about everything. Like, he's way too personal with people, and I get like that too. But the point being is, I don't say it. I do it because I like being honest with myself. I like being honest with people, and I know that it can help people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's less like, even with the internal struggle with sexuality, it's not as common, but there's still people that, like, their parents would throw them out, or
100%.
Like, my parents had a major issue when I was younger with it, which had an influence on the decisions I made at the time. And if they were more open to it, I might have chosen a different path. But I'm sure there are still people that might live in very religious households that struggle with that. Or even, let's just say, that aside, the musical journey, and I bring this up in interviews all the time. It's like, no one likes to talk about after the first phase of success.
Yeah.
And the ups and downs that come with that. The reason why I was able to manage to get through that with minimal crisis was I was popular 6,000 or 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no one knew who I was really in Jersey, not until the Grammy, basically. But the point being is, like, my popularity was in another country, and no one made me feel special in Jersey. So, when the popularity faded for a while. You know what I mean? Like after that, you know, and garage went underground and stuff. It wasn't that. It didn't have that much bite to it. You know what I mean? It was more like, okay, how do I deal with this so I can continue to make money or survive in this industry? Not so much like no one likes me anymore or anything. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't the way I looked at it. You know, it was just trying to understand what's popular now. Why is this popular? What's, you know? So
I've never looked.
I get it.
Sorry, no, carry on.
No. What were you gonna say?
That's really interesting what you said, because I've never looked at it like that. Like, you're popular 6,000 miles away or however far, because it's exactly the same for me. I'm not popular in the UK, not at all.
It's an American thing, which is actually better. I mean, not that it's better, but like, I mean, everyone wants to make it in America, so feel good about that.
No, I'm super happy and very fortunate and very lucky. But it's like, it's really, look, if I think about it, it's really nice that it's that for me. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to be popular in my home. Like, I don't live in Bristol, but I'd love to be able to headline a show there. And there's those goals, right, that we all have as artists, that I'd love to do certain things. But realistically, the fact is that I come to the little village that I live in, and you're just the same dude that used to play rugby at school, and you're the same person. And there is that level of like actually switching off from it all and being able to like, there's not that expectation of you have to live up to your expectation. And let's be honest, a lot of that is an ego thing. And I don't really think people actually think about that. I think it's more of an internal thing of like, what do we think other people are thinking of? Yeah,
of course it is. Yeah, for sure.
It's strange. Strange.
No, I mean, but it's true. I mean, I took a hiatus from making music for 2 years before I got back into it, and had another, you know, when I moved out to LA, and I was kind of like, you know, embarrassed to let people know that I was getting a job, because I felt like it made me look like a failure because I wasn't able to do music full time. But that was inside my head. And I remember being at this customer service job, and there was a guy that was friends with Armand Van Helden and like knew who I was, and I'm like, oh, it's almost like being exposed, you know. Until I realized that most people, you know, after pirating music became a thing, a lot of people had side hustles, you know, or main hustles, and were doing music on the side, and like, wow, this has become a norm and stuff. But like, you know, that self-consciousness of feeling like, oh, what are people going to think if they know I'm not doing this full time? And no one gave a shit. It's
so interesting you say that. And you know what I love the most is when you meet people that have zero idea about music. I love it, because there's literally like, I don't know about you, but I don't like talking about my career to other people. I really don't. Like, if it's, especially unless it's somebody in music, I cannot stand talking about my career to other people. And when you start speaking to somebody and they have no clue and no interest, I'm like, great, we don't have to talk about it. And it's like just kind of blasé, and it won't affect them. And I feel like, especially nowadays, it's actually easier to make friends with people that just have zero idea of what you do, because there isn't that expectation of who you are, or and that's purely, I put that on myself. That's nobody putting that on me, but it's purely an internal thing, which is interesting. Especially of the other sex. So like for girls, for me, is meeting a female that doesn't know who I am or isn't interested in the industry is so much more attractive to me, because it's not like a constant talk about that.
Well, and you know that there's no sense, like there's going to be a genuineness to who you're with, that there's no ulterior motive. And then also, you know, it's almost like, especially in a relationship, if it's a romantic relationship, you don't really want to be put on the pedestal for the fame part of anything. So I definitely, and I've always been, I think that's the thing too. It's like, because of the type of person I was, I never really had many music industry friends. Like I had my best friends, you know, I had my best friend from birth in Jersey. He's a cop. Yeah. He's a policeman.
Love
you
that.
know, him and his wife are like my brother and sister. You know, I used to go there and vent and just like decompress from life and go hang out with them. And I mean, that's one of the main things I do miss from my move to LA is not being around them. But like all my friends were outside of the music industry, and even my boyfriend, though he likes music, he ain't into my music, and I love that. Like I don't care that he's not into. He doesn't like to. He like barely comes to my gigs, and that's great because it's a job for me.
Exactly.
Like I mean, I enjoy it, but you know, I don't need to be patted on the back by the person I'm with. You know what I mean? I'm glad that I'm being loved, that he loves me for other reasons. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, so.
I think it's so important. I think it's so important to have healthy relationships, not just sexually, like as well, like actual friendships is so important. It's so important.
For sure.
I'm sure you've spoken about this multiple times, and I don't know if you're tired of it. I wouldn't get tired of it, but when Daft Punk call you up and go, "Do you want to work together?" How does that feel?
Well, when they first did that, this was before. It was before they were just starting to make headway with Defunct. I think was the first thing. So it wasn't like, you know, it was at the very beginning
of that career. Yeah.
And again, I was, you know, in my 20s. I was like, you know, I was going through so much stuff. So it's not like I could really absorb everything. Like it wasn't, well, again, like Daft Punk wasn't Daft Punk at the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. What I found fascinating was it was me and my manager at the time, and I met up with Tomas and Germain. Tomas did all the talking really. And it's like, you know, what was I, like 23 or something? So he had to be like 21. And to hear this kid talk like he had knowledge of the industry way beyond his years. Like, you know, I mean, I didn't realize at the time that his father was a big disco producer at the time. So he definitely had the education from having his dad, but like he spoke with this confidence.
Love that.
That I'm like, Jesus, here I'm this insecure American guy that was willing to like sign away my tracks to Nervous Record because I wanted to be on Nervous Record. And he's talking about like, yes, we might have a deal with Virgin, but I don't know if I like the terms. Like he didn't say those exact words, but it was along those lines. Like, here's a guy that was so confident in his own work that he was willing to negotiate with a major label and not care. I'm like, damn, I like the French. They're very confident, aren't they? You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, so it was really cool, but it was funny after the meeting, you know, nothing happened, and it was just like homework came out, and, you know, I was like, oh, maybe they lost interest, but I did presumptuously listen to teachers just to see if my name was said, and they did say it. So I was like, okay, they still like me. And then, you know, coming towards Discovery was when I, you know, they called me back again, and, you know, which was cool. And by that time, obviously, you know, they were Daft Punk, and it was even a bigger deal to work with them. And they came to my Jersey studio, my parents' house, in my old bedroom.
Wow.
And we worked on the track there.
Amazing. I've had a conversation with Wes Clark. I don't know if you know who Wes Clark is, but he's a mixer from the UK, mix engineer. Okay. And he's won a Grammy and been nominated for a couple. Mm-hmm. There's two questions for it.
Sure.
Does it change your career? Is the first one. And how does it feel personally to say that you've won a Grammy?
The grant, well, the thing of it is, you know, again, it's there was this, I have this humility about me because, you know, my ego was killed a long time ago. Like, you know, through management, through dealing, you know, I had some bad experiences at the beginning of my career. And the thing of it is like the working on the track on Ram with them was such an experience that it was like the final push to move to LA, which, you know, changed my life, you know. And I always tell Tomas they were there at very critical moments in my career. And funny enough, because with Face to Face, the year before that is, you know, when I told you I went out exploring the whole LA scene and stuff, and I wound up having a little bit of a breakdown and bottomed out, like just like the year, like July of 90, what was it, like 98 or 99? And then that same month, but the next year, Tomas and Guimond put me up in the Tim Hotel in Paris, overlooking all of Paris. So like the 180 of like having this week in July in, like, I think 99, where I was like rock bottom. And then the next year, that same week, I'm in this gorgeous hotel working with them, like my first time out of the country, really, and they put me in business class too, which I always put, that's like business class, it was so poetic, and it kind of did feel very religious at the time. Like, like that something brought those two things to me. But, and again, so then you bring in Ram and, again, another pinnacle moment where it's like, it changed my whole life working with them. Like again, my manager at the time was living out in LA, and I've always was kind of like enamored by moving out here, but I was so attached to my family in Jersey. I couldn't picture myself moving out there. And, Tomas kept encouraging me that, like, about moving out, and, just even saying, like, you've given a lot of time to your family, and, they've had you for many years, like, you need to do for you. And then my mother actually, the first week I was working with them in LA, my mother's like, you need to be out there. She's like, and me and my mother are very close. Yeah. And she's like, there's nothing for you in New Jersey. She's like, you need to be with your peers. She's like, I'd feel bad if you go, but I'd feel worse if you stayed. And I'm like, who is this person on the other end of the phone telling me this? Because I can never picture my mother saying those words. But that was like the final thing that made, because I always felt like I was going to be my parents' caretaker, because I'm Italian. Yeah. But yeah, so
that's a pretty ballsy thing to say as your mum. From that generation.
For sure. I mean, especially because we were very close. We had like that unhealthy, mama's boy relationship, So I moved out to LA, and then that next year was the Grammy nomination. And when I heard that it was being nominated, I just laughed because I was living with my parents for way too long. And like I always say, there's a fine line between the guy that's living with his parents for way too long and a Grammy Award winner. I always say that because it's the truth. It's like, if anyone saw my life in 98, I mean, just, it's like, could you imagine like trying to if you're trying to date a girl, you're like, hi, I live at home with my parents. I'm 38, 39, don't have a lot of money in the bank. Like, it's like, you just look at the transition in 2 years, and it looks like an overnight thing, and it wasn't overnight, So I mean, the Grammy it was surreal, just like being on stage with them, walking by Taylor Swift, and she had this weird look on her face, and then I come to realize it was because when they announced Random Access Memory, she thought they were announcing Red, so she had this like, so it's like, oh, that's why she had that fake look of success on her face, like happiness on her face. But I mean, it was a huge deal. It wasn't even just for me, a huge deal for me. It made my mother and father very proud. Yeah. And I remember getting on the phone with my father that night. I'm like, do you feel vindicated now, Dad? Because like he would have friends be like, why are you letting your son live there for so long? And it's like, and then they would have to hear the same kick drum loud over, like, they really put their time in for tolerating what I did in that household. And, my mother was queen for the day for, she got the key to the city basically that, in Bloomfield, New Jersey and stuff. So
I love that. I love that, man. I think not everybody, but I think a lot of producers have similar parents where they have to put up with it for so many years until their son or daughter can fly out of the nest and kind of fend for themselves. But I love that story. Because
you want to hear the addendum to that story though? That's even better. It's humorous because, after getting the Grammy, like, I wasn't Pharrell where I had an album ready to go. Yeah. I was honestly going through a lot of growing pains. Like again, coming to terms with, I have a boyfriend now, and having to come to terms with who I was as a person. So I wasn't being as creative as, it would have been great if I was. Yeah. So, I was being successful, but not like stellar success, like, with all that was going on around me. So I remember one time my mother on the phone, like months after, it's like, I know, like a year later, it's like, oh, Todd, you're so talented. When are you going to be as successful as Pharrell? I'm like, oh, thanks, Mom, And then I remember my father in another conversation, not too far from that one. So what does it take to make a hit record? Like, how much do you have to sell? And I'm like, I know he was like it felt like he was alluding to my lack of that. I'm like, good Lord, there is just never enough to get your parents' acceptance and love. And they still don't understand. Like, so it's a great story. We stopped there and said, I made my parents proud with the Grammy. Great way to end the story. The real ending of the story was those two conversations. Great for therapy.
But that now we know where we get it from.
Oh yeah. Oh, right? I always I say to my mother, I'm like, I said, yeah, maybe I lived rent free, but I'm making up for the amount of money I've spent in therapy because of you two. Like, and I joke around about it. They laugh, but it's true.
It's true though, isn't it? When it
is
comes
true.
To that.
It is true. At least they can accept the fact they know that, all parents screw their kids up in some way, shape, or form,
That's why I don't want kids.
I got rabbits. I don't have kids. I'm not having kids. So.
Yeah, I do not. I don't want kids for that reason. Yeah. It's like, I was very fortunate. I'm very fortunate. My parents are fucking amazing.
Nice.
They definitely, but there's parts of my parents that is definitely me, if you know what I mean. I'm 50-50. But also like, I look at my parents and I'm like, I can't be that good as a parent as what they were to me. And
that's an amazing thing to say, though. I'm sure you would be amazing, but I'm saying like the fact that you feel that way about your parents means they did an amazing job.
Oh man, I'm so lucky. Like, yeah, I'm fucking lucky. But yeah, like that's the thing for me, because I'm competitive as fuck, and I want to be better than my mum and dad, and I just can't. But yeah, I think. A Grammy is something in the music industry that I feel like everybody subconsciously looks at it as the be all and end all achievement in the music industry.
Yeah. Which sorry, go on.
Do you still feel that way?
I never felt that way.
Really?
I feel it's, to an outsider's point of view, I feel it is the end all to be all. But the point being is, like, people that saw me on that stage at the Grammys and saw that accomplishment, they, obviously they were happy for me and they were excited, and I think it represented to a lot of underground producers too, like, or like almost like a representation of them as well, at least. And that's what some, a couple of producers told me, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
But, and forget about, let's put the producer side of it aside for a second and just like say the general audience, like people, like friends that might have seen. It's like, there was no social media, wasn't a big thing at the time in the 90s, but I inadvertently invented a subgenre of music, like me and Armand. And so, like, to me, that's a bigger accomplishment than winning a Grammy. You know what I mean? And, but it'll never be looked at, like, they don't understand what that actually means. Yeah. So to them, the Grammy represents the pinnacle of success. And I'm very thankful for it. I can't, again, and then the insecure producer that I am still can't 100% just absorb it and feel 100% fantastic about it. And do you know why? I bet you know why.
Tell me.
Because it was off the coattails of another group of producers. Because I'm not the center, so it's like I have to prove I need my own Grammy without anyone else's help. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the fucked up mentality of being an insecure producer. Like, and I always feel like, and I feel self-conscious about that too. Like, there'll be a thought, like, do people look at me and go like, he just got it because he's part, like, he didn't get it's Daft Punk, like he's riding the coattails of Daft Punk. This is the shit that runs through my head sometimes. Like, mate, and so
I relate.
That's what I mean. Like, so even when I, like, people love when I post things on social media about my working with them. And I I do it. I don't do it like, I don't try to saturate my feeds with that, because I feel like, I never wanted to just ride the coattails of my relationship with them. But it was funny. A couple of years ago, I was at, Tomas was out, because this was a year before they were going to do the 10th anniversary of Ram. And I'm like, I told him, like, we were talking about stuff. I said, yeah. And I try not to exploit our working relationship, that much. He's like, why not? We do. It's like they exploit Daft Punk. So I'm like, I felt like he gave me permission to do it. Like he doesn't even pay attention to socials, but it's just the idea of like, it's okay to boast that I worked with them twice and to do that. But I still try to. But wait, can I tell you one other thing that's funny?
Go for it. Yeah.
This is the other, again, why the insecurity comes. My father always constantly tells me, and it's like, it's such a slap, and it's like it's a backhanded compliment basically, and he doesn't even realize it. He tells me, he goes up to people, is like, do you know who Daft Punk is? Well, my son worked with Daft Punk. Like, you're not bragging about what I've accomplished. You're bragging that I worked with a more popular group than me. Like getting that, like, more therapy, need more therapy for that shit. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't see, he does it all the time, but he doesn't even realize that it's not really complimentary to me, but yet he looks at it as such. But it's crazy, It's a good thing I have a thick skin.
No, it's really interesting that you're like listening to how your thought process works and how your feelings work, because I totally understand everything you say, and also really respect what you say and can kind of relate to certain things. However, there's also that level that's in the back of my head that everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, but you created a genre.
Well, I feel that I feel that's like I said, it was an inadvertent thing. It wasn't like I did it, but like that to me is the accomplishment that stands out. If I have to, when I die, like I could say that, it feels like a good feeling to feel like this was the flow of consciousness in a direction, in a country of music, and I managed to nudge it into a different direction in this area, and it's splintered into, it's like to be able to plant the seed of something that it just grew, and you see it blossom into something. It's an amazing feeling. And I don't know, aside from people like you or like people that understand what I do, will understand how much of an impact that had on me personally, and why I am more confident, because I did accomplish something like that. And it wasn't really like, I only did the production, but I still had no control that it could, like, there's plenty of people that come up with really interesting concepts. That doesn't mean it's going to stick and become something greater than itself. There's still a part of fate that played into all of this, so
I hear that. I think the thing is, there's people that create genres, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say, for instance, Deadmau5.
Yeah.
Deadmau5 created a genre and financially won from it, right? And there was a movement after that. It wasn't really a culture, what he created. He created his own genre. Eric Prydz kind of did the same, right?
Yeah.
Whereas UK garage influences so much music, and it's influenced nearly the whole of the British music industry at some point in our lives, whether that turned into speed garage, whether that was jungle, whether that was grime. Like, it's all a lot of it comes from UK garage or jungle, and that's pretty fucking amazing to be that person.
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, I don't sit here and wake up every day thinking I did that.
You can't, right? You can't.
But the point being is, like I said, if you knew me in my 20s and you knew how I wanted to quit every 5 minutes, and like every time I wanted to quit, the phone would ring and something would happen. And this is why I was so big into God, because I felt like it was too coincidental that every time I wanted to quit, a door would open. Like, like I felt like I was being watched over for something, you know what I mean? And I still feel that way, even though my take on religion has changed so much. But, like I said, I think, turning 50 and even like leading up to 50, knowing that I did something that mattered has definitely helped me to feel peace with where I'm at now. You know, and like I said, if I had made better decisions, I could be rich, you know what I mean? But you know, it always seems like the success never lined up with my maturity. And when I was able, like, even with the Grammy thing, it's just like moving to LA was such a mental shock of just trying to figure myself out in this bigger world that I couldn't, I even like, I look back because like, I think like, oh, if I was just a little quicker on, you know, maybe I could have had an album out at the time that I won the Grammy. But you know what? I remember what I was writing at the time, and it just, it was not bad, but it was just, I wasn't ready to, you know, so it just wasn't the right timing of things per se.
But sorry to butt in.
No, it's fine.
But like, I hear what you're saying, and I can, there's also levels of it, but I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, what is rich? What is a rich life to you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm like, as far as I mean, when I say rich, I'm just saying like,
I hear
some people,
I know
I'm
what
just
you're saying.
like, you know, it's like, let's put it this way. You look at like young guys like Disclosure, you know, they were able to
copy.
What's that?
That copied your sound.
They definitely were influenced in certain areas, but I'm just saying the point being is like, you know, some people are just like, again, like Tomas Spangled, or like that when success hits, they're able to make proper business decisions to get. I was pure artist. Like I'm like, I was one of those people. I need someone to govern the helm or stay at the helm to, you know, like I'm great with the ideas, but I need people to help, you know, steer the business end of it. And that's who I was. So please don't take what I'm saying as far as like, I always bring that thing about the money element of it. It's just because I think at 50, focusing on the idea of a nest egg, and
I get it.
Not retirement, like, cause I'm not nowhere near ready to retire, but I don't want to be 80 having to DJ to, you know what I mean? Like, you want to be able to say like, you know, and I think that it's the one area that still needs to be focused on. But as far as like the idea of what a rich life is, I'm very thankful for where I'm at. Like I said, I used to have, you know, I mean, again, through all my struggles, there were times like I just wanted the meteor to hit, you know, the extinction level asteroid to hit just right on my apartment or wherever I was at the time. Like, please just, I don't want to adult. I don't want to deal with this. Like, you know, and being in love and having a relationship changed that for me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, cause I don't want to just live for myself. I want to be in this relationship, you know, for as long as humanly possible. So it's like, you know, having a partner, having someone by your side is an amazing feeling. And then, you know, seeing like, you know, other family, like my nephew who I helped raise per se, he's gonna be a father soon, and he's making me the godfather. It's like, I want to see, you know, and I know that I played in like, because of this, my job, because of my music, I was able to be involved in his life beyond what an uncle would be, you know what I mean? And his father wasn't in the picture. So I've done some stuff that I think has been really positive for other people as well. And I'm seeing the fruits of that labor. Yeah. So I'm very thankful for my whole life. And, you know, and again, to be honest too, even, you know, like I think when you become really successful financially, it's very easy to become soft in what you do in your art, because it's like you can get lazy, or you can take major breaks. When you have to hustle, it keeps that creative fire going, because there's no time for sitting back. And I'm thankful for that element of it, because it's keeping me on my toes, and it's, you know, it's keeping that desire to create. It's still intense. You know what I mean? Like I'm not stopping, or, you know, I might be slowing down a little because I'm getting old, but I'm not stopping by any means, you know? So. And
please don't, man. Please don't, because the world needs your music 100%.
I'm glad you feel that way. I love doing what I do. I mean, I enjoy, I want to try to keep coming up with new ideas, even if they don't make their way into mainstream, but just to give ideas that people haven't thought of. I mean, that's the fun part. It's like, there's so many people just doing the same thing over and over again. Like every, going to Spotify playlists, it's like, okay, drum loop drop, rise drop, right? It's like, could you imagine? I always joke around about this. Like if dance music made it illegal to put drum rolls and drops in their tracks, like what would be left? What would you be left with? Like, would anyone want to listen to the track? That's a great question. If your track doesn't work without a drum roll and drop, is it even worth putting out?
Is it even worth it? I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for a drum roll sometimes.
We all do it to a certain extent. I'm not saying that. It's like, I think the thing of it is, there was a time where it wasn't every single track. 100%. I mean, like again, I listened to Masters at Work and Todd Terry and that early stuff. They didn't do that. You know what I mean? Like there were a lot of producers that didn't do it. I think you would have, harder labels or like subliminal or things like that, like that might fit that more of that big room format. I just think that it became that with everyone playing it safe, everything's been honed down to the simplest form to get to where you need to go. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree. And I also think that comes to how it goes back to kind of what we were saying at the beginning, but is how is the music listened? How is it received? How's it consumed? It's very different to how it was back then.
You're absolutely right.
And I think everyone needs to get everyone's attention, and a 10-minute garage record compared to a 2-minute 50 tech house record. Yeah. You're just going to get more listens on that 2-minute 50
I agree
record. And I don't actually think it's a music industry issue. I think it's a consumption issue of the general public, and then that just filters out into the music industry.
That's a good point. Well, I mean, again, we've all become more ADD because of the way social media is. I know this for a fact, because if you ever, that's what I wanted to tell you. Make it throw that in there. We were talking about inspiration. Yeah. I find more inspiration in listening. I listening to old disco. Yeah. Or listening to not to bring up a cliche or anything, but like during the pandemic, for some reason I just got into listening to the Bee Gees, just all their productions and stuff from what they did with Barbra Streisand to Diana Ross, and then even just the Saturday Night Live Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. But when you hone in on the elements and you hear things that you didn't notice before, I was like, holy shit, that sound is not just a synthesizer. That's him singing. He's like singing like da 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 over the synthesizer to make a very unique sound that couldn't have been just generated with synthesizer. I'm like, I never thought to do that. Finally an idea that oh my god, or the idea is you listen okay, there's there's the general groove of the track, but then there's Rhodes being played but not syncopatedly. It's almost like it's very loose in the way it's played, and it just adds this color behind this thing. So it's like all these subliminal ideas that are going on in the music that you don't even recognize, that are contributing, but that make you feel good about the music, that I love it. And I can't put my finger on what makes it so great. That's what makes it great, because there's all these little ideas that are going on a lower level that you don't, and you can't hear that in a lot of modern music because it's all, everything is just there to aid the vocal per se, and it's just enough to keep things moving.
It's packaged. It's packaged nicely.
Yeah, it's packaged. I mean, again, it's just if you listen to a Fleetwood Mac track before the vocal even came in, there's a groove. There's something there. It's like you're not listening to an Ariana Grande song and being like, oh, I love the way this track starts. It's it's always just about aiding the vocal. And I think even in dance music, a lot of it is focused on the vocal. You have a strong bass line, a strong drum loop, but the vocal is the center of attention. Whereas before it was okay, great groove. Oh, vocal comes in even better. And then but you could just be you know what? I don't even know the words to this song, but I just love this groove so much. And I feel that's a major lacking thing these days. So
Yeah, I'm the same. I listen to a lot of like funk and Motown and soul.
yeah,
And for me, I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was listening to like, I think it was an Aretha record, and I'm just like, that's what it was. I was listening to it because I'm actually sampling one of her records at the moment, and there's no structure to their songs. There's no like verse, chorus, pre, middle eight, whatever.
Yeah.
There's none of that. It's like, here's me just vibing, and there might be a hook. Obviously, in like some of her bigger records, there's like there's hooks, but even between the hooks, there's not proper verses, and it's like, wow, you don't. There was no rules there of like a song should be this, this, and this, and a song should be 3 minutes long or whatever. Like, this could be a 5-minute song of like somebody playing the organ, like an absolute boss. And then she's just like in the background, like just ad-libbing over it. Yeah. And it still sounds amazing. But I think also, without talking shit on too many people, there was just pure talent then. And you had to be very fucking talented to get through the kind of gatekeepers. Where now, like, there's literally, I know there's record, and you know as well.
You're not talking shit. You're. This is factual.
Yeah.
This is not about judging the situation. Will, like, you're right. Go on with what you're saying.
There's literally records that the person hasn't even been in the session. They haven't even opened up Logic or Ableton or whatever they work on for a record to come out, and it's literally just their name is on it, and they've had zero creative input into it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that takes the like artistry out of this.
Well, you know what it is? It's because, again, DJing, the DJ has become the center of attention.
Yeah.
And just like the thing of it is like, even like, you know, when I was a kid, like I was naive. Like I always thought like singers wrote their own music.
Yeah.
And they didn't. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they're singing on it, but a lot of times those songs could be written by completely different people and they have nothing to do with it other than that they're singing the song. But they were singing the song. So the DJ has become the singer.
Yeah.
But they're the DJ.
Yeah.
And it's just like someone else is doing the work behind it. And it's about, in that particular situation, it's about promoting a brand, not so much promoting artistry. You know what I mean? Like, because if the DJ really was focused on like say if it's a producer, like I don't know, I would my manager, there are things that my manager brings to me that I might this is a great idea, and you know, if you do some cut ups on it, it'll be great. I'm like, and again, it's just like my name will be on it, and I might be the main person on it.
Yeah.
But I might not do a lot of the work on it, and it feels weird because I'm an artist and I need to. You know, I had a perfect example. My manager manages the group Mant, and they were having success with this track. Disclosure was playing it. Like, it would be great if you put your vocal on there and talked about, you know, the way things were, and the track did really well.
Yeah.
And it was a hit, but like, you know, my contribution was just me talking on the record, and they don't care. They were happy to be a part of it, and they did an amazing job on the track. It feels friggin' weird though. Like, it would literally, I had to adjust this year to the idea that I don't have to be the center of attention in my artwork to feel good about it. But as an artist, it still kind of irks me a little bit, you know? And I think that's the difference. It's like anyone that's just slapping their name on something and they're getting ghost produced, one of two things has to be happening. Either you don't give a shit, or you're getting a ton of money that's outweighing, like, in other words, like if someone's like told me, you know, I'll give you $2 million to put your name on this track, you damn well better believe at this point in my life, I would do that
100%,
because I'm looking at the bigger picture of saying, like, you know what, I want to buy a house. I want to have a nest egg and have a thing to retire. I wouldn't want to do that on every track per se, but I'm just saying, you know, in complete honesty, you know, the sacrifice of the artistic integrity, or to have to do that, the payoff would have to be really, big,
Yeah.
you know, but some people probably just like, again, like a DJ is just looking to DJ.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to be a producer. So the idea of being able to get out there and DJ requires that balance between having a hit record and you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, I don't know.
No, it's a tough one.
I'm not totally against it. I'm not totally for it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean? I'm not here to judge how it works.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, my thing is to how to fit in with it.
Yeah.
As it's, you know what I mean? Like, because if you buck the system, you're never gonna change things back to the way they were. So it's like, how do you find yourself in it? Keep your integrity, do your thing, and figure out how you fit into it all and feel good about fitting in with it all. You know what I mean? That's how I try to approach it.
And I think also being able to like sit down and look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm proud of what I've just done.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that I would struggle with the most. If there was a record that I hadn't worked on and it was my biggest record, can I really call? Is that real? Is it like,
yeah.
And realistically, no, it's going back to that thing of like what everyone else thinks. And that's a personal ego and internal battle. But it's like, is everyone else saying, yeah, but he didn't really write that record or she didn't really write that record, which...
My thing is this, like, let's put it, like I said, I'm setting up the terms. Like, if I had something that was guaranteed that was going to be a hit, and I knew that the payoff was going to allow me the freedom to do what I wanted in the future.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, is it like, I wouldn't, like, in other words, like, I think as an artist, I so just want to create that, you know, if someone said, oh, he didn't really, do that, like, but if it allowed me the freedom to create for the rest of my life, like I might be willing to
do it,
to bite the bullet on that. But like I wouldn't want to make it a habit of doing that. But like, you know, it is the business element of like, you know, again, you don't think of these things when you're 20, when you're 20 or 30 or something like that. But at 50, you know, and you see more life behind you than in front of you. It's like you start looking at things a little different. But again, I'm not saying that I'm not incriminating myself. Like, you know, I've never like had someone ghost produce my tracks, but it has gotten easier for me to accept the fact that I don't have to have 70% or 50% of a collaboration to be like, you know what, I've earned the right to have my name on this track with this person. And if I did 10% and I'm getting credit for working in this collaboration, I've earned that right. I feel like I've earned that right to
100%
to be okay with it. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
No, I totally get that. And I think also if you're writing for other people and kind of contributing, you need that credit. People need to see that you're part of that.
Yeah, but on a personal level, like I said, if it wasn't like 50%, I always felt like I can't even feel good about it. But now it's like, you know what? I've done enough. I can feel good if it was only a 10% contribution or 15 or 20% contribution and stuff. And,
I think it's a classic example as well. Some of the best records in the world, it took a team to make.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And that's the thing for me that it took me a while to really realize that and to really accept that I can't do it all myself.
Yeah.
And that some of the best music ever made. Let's be honest, nearly all of Motown was written by like two guys.
Yeah.
And the singers and everything didn't do anything. They were just amazing singers. It was just like, it's a weird industry. Especially from, it does. It really does. And I think it's about having the right team and it's about having everything. And everything has to align at the right time for it all to pop off at the right time.
And don't get me wrong, it's not like you can't do something all yourself and have a hit. You can do that, you know. I mean, like, you know, but also know that even if it wasn't your biggest hit, like the idea is like the fact that you can have a team around you to work with you meant that you had enough value in what you were doing that people wanted to work. Or you know what I mean? Like you didn't get there just because someone picked you out of a hat. You got there because you did something that was worthy to have that team around you.
Agreed.
And like when you think about like, let's even look at Ram. Yeah. That might have been two people at the helm, but that album was made of, you know, hundreds of, you know, guitarists, singers, engineers. Like there were so many people involved to make that. And I think the other way to look at it is it's easier to relate it to the film industry, because when you think about what a hit film looks like and how many people are involved with making hit, it is a group effort. So again, the ego, it's learning to kind of quiet the ego and not feel like you need to be the center of attention, or not even the center of attention, but to feel like you need to be the only one creating, and know that just being a part of it is important as well. You know what I mean? Like, the synergy comes from, being a part of it, not just being the only person involved in it. So that's what I keep trying to tell myself. I almost believe it. I almost
getting there. It's getting there. Todd, I think that's a perfect thing to end on, if I'm honest.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. Like I've loved this conversation, and I'm really excited to meet you in person and kind of hopefully write some music with you in the future.
We are going to do a track together. We need to work on some music. So that's going to happen soon. I'll come out to where you are. So.
Yeah, come out here, or I'll come to LA, whatever. But we definitely have to. But dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. Thank you for being open and honest, and thank you for kind of sharing parts of your life that people don't know about. I really, really appreciate it.
As you can tell, I love to talk, so never at a loss for words,
An Italian from New Jersey that doesn't like to talk, that just doesn't happen, right?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
How can people follow you? How can people get involved in Todd Edwards' life?
Okay, well, fortunately, my social media across the board is Todd Edwards 3000. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm not a big fan of Twitter, actually, but TikTok. I'm really into the TikTok thing now, because obviously I'm good at being stupid on video, so that's my new jam. So I'm trying to build that following there. It's building up, but I was so against TikTok, and now I love it. Like, I'm addicted to watching stupid videos as well. So and then I would like to also say that to prepare for the relaunch of my label, New Trend Music, which hopefully we will see at least by the fourth quarter of this year, or for the new year. And I got plenty. Wes Saunders and Defected Records have been showing me so much love, and I got a ton of remixes of my back catalog coming out on Defected, so keep an eye out for that. They already have remixes by Salute and Mas Tiempo, which is Skepta and Jammer and stuff, and there's more to come. Amazing. So
can't wait to hear them. Cannot wait to hear them. Dude, thank you so much again, and I'm sure I'll see you very soon.
A pleasure, Will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
And that's a wrap. Big love to Todd for coming on. Thanks for listening. If you want to join the Discord, get on the link in the bio. Please subscribe to this podcast. Please share it. Please review it. Please show your mates. Tell your mates about it. Thank you for listening. Till next time. Keep safe.